I don't see this being the most popular legendary ship, but she is fun, although she's going to join Minotaur as becoming the most fun ship to shoot at legendary tier. Now, to keep you from getting shot, you're very stealthy and you have these fantastic smoke screens. They don't last very long, but they reload quickly, and I'd argue that's more valuable than a long duration smoke screen. More on that later. You get some super weak heals and a torp reload booster, which is cool. It can leave you pumping out 40 deep water torpedoes if you would like to turn in circles a couple of times. We're using a pretty typical light cruiser build, and I would say Chin here is the commander of choice. I tried a couple of builds and I landed here for now, but I do need to test it a little bit more. We have about 9 games right now for this video. The HE alpha is low and the shells are going to shatter most of the time, so I would say buffing fire chance is a must. Beyond that, as tempting as it is to spec into torpedoes, I wouldn't, and I'm going to show you why during some of the gameplay. I'm also using a double concealment build with Swirsky and Makawa, and again, I might need to test a little bit more before I land on a permanent build. The guns, like mentioned, you're going to shatter a lot of shells because these are 127mm guns. You don't have any special pin buffs or anything like that, and a stock 9% fire chance. It's definitely going to pay to buff into the fires, and we have ours at 14%. The reload is pretty fast, but if you've played Minnow and Colbert, it just feels like legendary tier. The real draw to this ship is this massive torpedo armament, which I'm going to tell you it may let you down. On paper, the torps are very, very spicy, but in gameplay, it doesn't always work out the way you would want it to. AA DPS is average, but the range is very good. She's quick, she's nimble, and she's also very stealthy. Actually, only the Napoli is more stealthy here at the highest tier in the game. With ours buffed, it's at 9.2 kilometers, and that is a huge part of staying alive in Jinan. That brings us to the armor. If you're a Minnow player, this could feel pretty familiar. Destroyer armor, although you do have 32mm on the side, so you can bounce 406s if you angle and if you are close enough, because you have a very lightly armored deck as well, 16mm. It definitely did not get the Colbert treatment that Legends gave it, and honestly, I'm glad it didn't. I don't think Colbert needs a 32mm bow. It just doesn't make sense to have the same armor as a battleship at the tier, but anyways. What seems to be funny about it is the PC version of Jinan actually does get a 32mm bow, while our devs here gave it half of that armor for whatever reason, I don't know. But again, I'm kind of glad they did. I think these ships, these really super light cruisers with great DPM, I think they should have light armor. It's just part of playing them. They're not easy ships to play. And on that note, I do want to throw up first game stats here. We played 9 and won all of them because of luck. That's why. It has to do with your teammates. And I usually do not get that lucky, but we did today. Still though, average damage and average XP are lower than what I am used to. And as a little background on me, most played ship at legendary tier is Radar Minotaur. So I'm no stranger to light cruisers that blow up, and this one was very difficult to play. So this ship is going to be difficult to play for a bunch of reasons. Also, did you guys see that splash right there? Is there some sort of a new mechanic or I don't know, a new animation that they've added to Legends? I've never noticed that little splash before. Rewind it and let me know down below. Or maybe it's just this particular ship has a low hull and I don't know, someone explain that to me. Anyways, certain ships in WoWs are hard to play for a myriad of reasons. Some of them are hard to play because you need good teammates, you need spotting or tanking or blah, blah, blah. And that is so true of the Pan-Asian cruisers. But Jinan checks a lot more boxes than that on difficulty level. This thing dies very easily. As you can see, we have a small HP pool, 39,900. That is one of the lowest HP pools at legendary tier. And the heals, while we have 3 of them on this initial build that I tried using fully packed, they don't heal back a ton of damage. The armor scheme we already talked about, it's not great. You have a little bit of chonky 32mm plating, but if you're ever caught out in the open like this detected, it is a scary proposition in this ship. And I wanted to highlight this battle in particular because of this. Like, this is a worst case scenario, and it's because a DD, the Hayate, is coming right up the middle. I have 9.2 conceal. This kind of thing shouldn't happen. Like, I should be able to get into position and be safe. But because of this DD pushing very aggressively up the middle of the map, yeah, it put us in a bad position and someone could have auto-aim specialed us. But alas, we made it, we're here, we are safe. Now, other reasons this ship is hard to play, aiming the shells. So Duncan is actually pretty close here, you know, relatively 10.4 kilometers, but you can see the shell travel time, 7 seconds. So if you're shooting at anything 15 kilometers max range, you know, you're talking about shell travel times of like 13, 14, 15 seconds, and it becomes very difficult to aim. On top of that, when you do actually hit your target, you know, if you can hit it where you're aiming, these are small guns, 127 millimeters, so you're going to be shattering a lot of shells. And that is bad for a bunch of reasons that we'll get into, obviously. Now, I showed my stats a little bit earlier, and for me, that wasn't really that good. So I'm a Minotaur player at Legendary tier. That is my most played ships, and I really enjoy light cruisers. And in Minotaur, I average about 20,000 more damage per battle. So these ships, I don't feel like they're the easiest ones to get damage, although I will say I'm kind of working on my build. All these initial games were double conceal, beyond range. I didn't have the other fire perk in slot 1, but hopefully with my changes that, you know, the build will get a little bit better. But we're in a sticky situation here. They pushed very hard, and if no one contests BB's pushing around the far side over there on this map, it can make for really bad situations. So we are going to come back over here. Unfortunately, we're still going to be spotted by the Hayate in the middle of the map. So again, I really wanted to show this battle because we're just in a tough spot. We were absolutely in a tough spot. And our biggest strength, all of these torpedoes are so good if enemies push you, and it's all negated on this map because of the islands over here. These guys are able to push, and we can't use our biggest asset, possibly 40 torpedoes if we use the reload booster, because of the islands. So good play on the red battleships over here, honestly. And we're in a bit of a pickle. I don't even want to shoot at Republic right now. It's just dangerous to be in the open water, and there could possibly be torpedoes headed this way. I can't remember what Hayate's torpedo range are. But yes, for so many reasons, Jinan is a tough ship to play, but I've been saying that enough. I will say she is fun. She is very rewarding. If you've been around World of Warships for a long time and you just want something different to play, a little bit of a challenge, absolutely make your way up the line. The Shamfon, not too fun, but the Harbin and the Sejong, a blast. And then you get to the Jinan here, and I do think this ship is very fun. I am happy to report, in order to get this ship, you do have to have the Shamfon, the Harbin, and the Sejong in order to complete the Bureau. I think that is great. One, it kind of keeps newer players out of getting into a ship that they could easily die in, you know, very, very easily. Nothing ruins matchmaking worse than having those players that die in the first 1 to 2 minutes. And hey, I've been that guy. I'm not dogging on anyone. I'm just saying that certain ships like this, if they are behind a little bit of a skill wall where you have to have some gameplay experience in order to get them, I think that is a great thing. I think it's the reason why Shimakaze, Gearing, Yamato, some of these ships are the worst played ships in the game, just because there is no barrier to entry. You don't have to have any gameplay experience in order to unlock them in the Bureau. So I'm glad to see that implemented, and here actually later in the video, we are going to talk about all of the legendary cruisers and kind of rank them. I've been wanting to do a video like that now that it is 2025, to talk about all of the best ships at Legendary tier so people can choose what Bureau they should be going for. They're the Hayate Torpedo, so yeah, he's still over here, once again making this kind of a nightmare scenario. Because, if you haven't noticed, we don't have sonar. We took a nasty hit from one of the battleships. It could have been the Colombo. I'm not sure, I was not paying attention, but that is the kind of thing that can happen if you're in open water. The deck armor is just not going to protect you at these sorts of ranges either. So what will protect you is the small size of this ship. As you can see, when you make yourself skinny, then you can potentially dodge a lot of shells. The agility is also pretty good here. Look at this turning circle. Not bad. The speed at 35 knots is also not bad. I think that is the top 1, 2, or 3. Top 3. Let's say it's the top 3. It's definitely not the fastest ship at the tier. And the rudder shift time really isn't that bad either. But your utility against destroyers is going to be frustrating. Not only can you not sonar them, you can't radar them, and you can't torpedo them. So deep water torpedoes, while they have their strengths, I do think they're a nerf over normal torpedoes. Like, I've known where this Hayate is most of the match, and if I could have guessed and thrown, I don't know, 20 torpedoes his way off of one side of my ship, I absolutely would have done it by now. But instead, they're only useful against battleships, cruisers, and carriers because of their deep draft in the water. They're not going to hit a destroyer. So that to me is a nerf to torpedoes. I know they have other assets. Because they are deep water, they are harder to spot. So I believe the detection radius of these torpedoes is like 800 meters, which is very, very saucy. And yeah, let's talk about those torpedoes. You have a 13.5 kilometer range. Again, they've been completely useless this match, right? We've done lots of zoning, but nobody has ever been in a position. How about this? I've not been in the correct position to be able to utilize them. If I were around the corner of the island over there by my teammates to the right, I would probably already be dead from the Schlieffen push. So I've kind of been stuck here, and my torpedoes have been absolutely useless. But still, the detection range being 800 meters and the fact that they go 69 knots with this build, I mean, that is crazy, and it's going to make the reaction time 4.5 seconds, which is scary. It's actually not the best at Legendary tier, believe it or not. The Khabarovsk has the scariest torpedoes at Legendary tier with under a 4-second reaction time. There are no dodging Khabarovsk torpedoes. You just kind of pray that, you know, if you are doing a drive-by or something very close to a Kaba, you just pray they don't hit you because you're not going to be dodging them. And that is kind of true of Jinan. If you don't have your sonar up, you're probably not going to see them and you're probably not going to dodge them. So you do things like this Colombo, this Duncan, and this Schlieffen did, and you just don't push a Jinan. That's it. And so while this ship has some cool strength in her massive torpedo armament, the reason I don't want to spec into it is for exactly this reason, that you're going to have matches where they don't come into play at all. So you're better off putting skills or perks into the guns that is going to make you more of a utilitarian ship. So we've dealt 120k just with these weak little 127mm guns. And I did want to show this battle, one, because it was a tough one, two, it shows how you can easily counter this ship just by not pushing it in open water. And three, this was the very, very, very first match we played, so we're kind of learning how to play this ship together. And it all comes down to the positioning, I believe. If you really want to see huge success in the ship, and I think the ship can put up massive, massive damage numbers, absolutely, you just have to be in the perfect position. And we're actually going to skip ahead a little bit here because we have a sailing simulator situation going on where the Colombo just sailed around this island. So we got the cap. This game is definitely going to be a win. And let's set up a nasty little torp strike here on the Colombo. And as always happens in World of Warship fashion, usually before your torpedoes reach the target, someone dev strikes them or takes all of their health. Or in our case, this match is just going to end before these 20 beautiful deep water torpedoes get there. And that is okay. It is really, really fun to flood a lane with 40 torpedoes, and I will showcase it in the next battle right here when we start this one off. And it's part of the reason I wanted to show this battle, because it started off so juicy and it looked like it was going to be so much fun. And then it turns into the typical legendary tier match where nobody's really pushing. And I don't think this is a Legends exclusive thing. I still watch a lot of creators on World of Warships PC, and it sounds like it's just how World of Warships is. You know, it's the meta. Whoever pushes first gets punished. It's just how the game is. So unfortunately, this is going to be very passive. And unfortunately, in today's meta, I think this game is more of what you can expect. I hate that I didn't have a banger gameplay to show you guys. Like, it's so fun when you take a ship out, like our review of the Michelangelo, and you get 200k like in one of your first 5 games. That is super fun. Today was not like that at all, but I do think it is a good showing of this ship. Now, what Red Team typically does in this situation, especially something like a Louisiana, is they're going to cut in towards the middle and use the edge of that island right there to shoot around. So we're going to go ahead and use a torpedo reload booster early on launch. 15 torpedoes right there, and then we're going to actually turn the ship and launch another 10, and let's see what kind of results we can get. This, if I remember, is a very hard-fought match and a little bit sweaty for the amount of damage we get. And again, I think that's just going to be characteristic of Jinan. I do love the maneuverability of this ship. It is really fun to be able to turn on a dime and have an agile ship like this. You can play in the open water a little bit, do some open water shooting depending on how many enemy ships are targeting you, but it can be a dangerous proposition. Now the 21 millimeters of shell pin, we were talking earlier about the guns, and sorry, I was trying to screenshot that. I thought that would be a cool thumbnail just to have like 40 torpedoes on the screen like that. It's really fun to watch. I never went to look at the screenshot to see if it's good enough. So yeah, apologies for that. But yeah, 21 millimeters of HE pin is pretty bad. It's the same as Colbert, but Colbert has faster fire rate and a lot more guns, so that makes up for it. You really only have 10 guns here, and if you look at how many ships you're going to shatter 21 millimeters of HE on, it is most of them. Like most of the cruisers you're going to have to hit in the superstructure to deal damage to, or maybe the bow of some ships. Look at the defense that just came to the game, and there have been multiple defenses in every match I've played today. Jinan is going to struggle against ships like that because yes, you just have to hit the superstructure and you have to hit the bow. Otherwise, you're relying totally on fire chance. Look at the Des Moines, wrapped entirely in 27 millimeters except for the superstructure. And you really can't do anything against that except try to burn them down. So I would absolutely buff into your fire chance, whatever you do with your build. If you don't do double stealth like I did, that is absolutely fine. And you'll notice that in this match, we actually took off fully packed for refill station, and it's going to get our reload down to 2.9. Just in those initial matches, I really felt like the damage output needed to be much, much more, because that is really all the ship can do. Area denial with zoning torpedoes and dealing damage. You have no utility to hunt DDs or really win matches. The best thing you could do if you were trying to improve your win rate in this ship is to stay close to your DDs and try to support them early game in DD fights. But that really hasn't been something that I've been able to do in the last 2 matches. It's mostly been big capital ships shooting at big capital ships from long distance. But yeah, the torpedoes at the beginning of this match, I thought it was going to be so much more promising than it was. But alas, the Louisiana, the Minotaur, and was it in Alaska? They all turned tail and left this flank. So once again, you're left in a ship that is so powerful if enemies push into you without enemies pushing into you. I would say most of the games are going to be like this, you know, where you are hunting the enemy down, chasing them down, or, you know, just trying to survive as everyone blasts each other's bows from long range. Still, though, if you can get in that good position and watch the flow of battle, this ship can be very, very fun. So we're going to go ahead and head out to this flank because I really don't have anything else that I can do. We'll slowly work our way up, see if we can utilize our torpedoes. And I figured I was going to get spotted here, but I didn't think Minotaur would start shooting at me so quickly. So I think I panic smoke here because I didn't want to get blapped by the Alaska. The ship is so squishy. All it takes is one AP salvo that you're not expecting, and that could really be the end of it. Still though, we get one more smoke later on in this match, so it's going to be okay. About the smoke screens, having smoke screens that come back more quickly rather than last so long, I think is so much more useful, especially in today's meta, where you might be in a situation where you smoke up and you have enemies that you can shoot, but they're going to turn and head the other direction. They're not going to stay there where you can farm them. And so having a 2-minute smoke is probably useless. It's more useful to have a smoke that reloads quickly, like this one. We have a minute 50, we get another one. Then one that takes as long as, you know, American smoke screens to reload. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and push up here and see what we can make happen. Once again, though, we are found in a situation where our biggest asset, 40 torpedoes, are pretty much useless. If I remember right, those 3 torp strikes that we got at the beginning of the game That's all we get. That's all we get all match. Yeah, it's a numbers game, especially when you're throwing torps down at ships 13, 14 kilometers away and hoping they sail into you. Yeah, I mean, when they hit, they do have good alpha, and I believe they have a very good flood chance. I didn't look it up. There is a PC wiki where they have every torpedo in World of Warships listed out and how much their flood chance is. But I do believe all of the deep water torpedoes have a very high flood probability. I mean, up there, what are we, 3 for 3? So, yeah. Now, about the legendary cruisers, I've been wanting to make a video to cover all the new legendary ships and the bureau projects that people should choose. If I had to rank the cruisers, first off, I would categorize them by ease of play, because I think there are a lot of new players that come to the game and they want a ship that is relatively easy to play, that they can have fun in, not have to sweat so hard or think so much like the Jinan here. And for that, I would put the Des Moines and the Wusta up top. I think they are both extremely, extremely strong. Des Moines is so easy to play. The armor scheme is good. The HP is pretty resilient. And then just the style of play with most of your guns up front and the fast reload. Such a phenomenal ship to play. Good radar, good sonar. Wusta, also very, very good. She has 30 millimeters of HE pin, if I recall. So she doesn't face the same sort of issues that the Jinan does. You know, you have 152 millimeter guns that are going to pin 30 millimeters of armor. So she can deal quite a lot of damage, and she has her own radar and her own kind of broken armor scheme with a 32 millimeter bow. So if you are a newer player looking to get into LT, Des Moines, Wusta, that would be at the top of my list. And the way the game is set up, those are old bureau projects, so you don't have to have played the Baltimore or the Cleveland, which is really unfortunate. I still think that should be fixed, but I don't think they can go back and like backdate all those bureau projects. Still though, those would be the ones I would start with. On that list, the Minotaur, I would rank her as one of the strongest ships at Legendary tier, but not easy to play because of the light armor. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. Alaska, I would put a little bit lower, maybe an A tier. Easy to play, and you don't have to have exclusive ships to get her. You can just get her the same as Shimakaze, Yamato, or Gearing just by starting the Bureau project. The Hanri, the Zhao, and the Venezia, all of them I would put into a different category because I think they are a little more challenging to play. They're all good in their own right, and they all require you to have played ships in that line. So for instance, the Venezia, you would have had to play the Brindisi, you would have had to unlock Brindisi or Amalfi, and so on and so forth. But still, very good ships, all of them. Hanri, Zhao, and Venezia, I would just say that they're harder to play, so be wary. Napoli as well, you have to have played other ships. I don't know which ship specifically, but I think you have had to play Italian cruisers or something to get the Napoli. Although the Napoli I do consider easy to play with the smokescreen and the broken armor scheme. Napoli is like a floating anvil. Now the Jinan, I'm probably going to place her right now as being, oh, should I say it, the worst legendary tier cruiser. Probably, just because the ship is so situational. Like, you can have fun again if enemies play ball and push into you, but you can see in this match and in the last match just how hard I've worked to hit 100k. Now there are some ships that 100k is just a given. You start the match and you know you're going to get 100k damage, like easy peasy. But with the low battle impact and how hard you have to work to get your damage and really utilize the torpedoes, yeah, this is not an easy one to play. Super, super fun though. It looks like we are going to win this match as well. And I didn't really talk about strategy of this ship or positioning, but you know, just kind of watch what I do not to die. I would say that maybe my lack of being aggressive is why my damage numbers were a little bit lower, but hey, at least I didn't get death struck every game. I think I died in 2 matches out of the 9. So yeah, maybe that is on me, but I do feel like this is a pretty passive ship to play, one that you have to be very careful in, careful where you position yourself, but perhaps with the concealment and a little more practice, I'll get better, and maybe we can cover the ship on stream or one of the other ones. I always enjoyed the Harbin and the Sejong. I thought they were super, super fun, especially the Harbin. She's a little bit of an oddball. All of the other ones are based around American light cruisers. So they have these super floaty shells. Harbin was actually based on a Soviet light cruiser and had great shell velocity. So that was probably still, I don't know if it's my favorite in the line, but very good. I'm curious what you guys think of Jinan, if you will be rushing for this one, or if this will go to the bottom of your list for your Bureau projects. Let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you. This is Derka signing off. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.